What is the most dangerous, harmful gas in manure? We're intentionally making methane. We take all the manure from that barn, the one behind you, and it comes up here to this tank. There's 500,000 gallons of manure, most of which is underground, that we heat up to 100 degrees using the heat off of the engine that you hear running over there in that building to intentionally make methane. Now, you know why we make the methane? That's what's making the engine run. We're running that engine that is hooked to a generator off of methane. We're making enough electricity to power almost 90 houses every day. Now, the bad thing is we still have to buy electricity. That's not enough power for us. But we're making that much electricity. So this whole system, that building, the digester, this building, was all constructed in 2006. Any idea what it cost in 2006? Want to take a guess? You're not far off. It was 1.1 million in 2006. In today's terms, it's probably $2.5 to $3 million to build the same thing. So we take all that manure, put it in there, make methane, generate electricity. We're generating almost 1 million kilowatt hours a year. We've generated over 15 million kilowatt hours since it was built. And the engine that's in there is running, has 153,000 hours. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The only time it's off is when it breaks, which is usually not a good thing, or when we have to change the oil or do maintenance. But now, put this in perspective, 153,000 hours. Now, if you were in a car that was driving, say, 40 miles an hour, so every hour you go 40 miles, and we've run for 153,000 hours. Anybody can do the math, how many millions of miles that is? Don't worry, I didn't pull out a calculator to figure it out, but I can tell you it's millions. So this one engine has run millions of miles. Most cars, you get a couple 100,000 out of them and you wore the living daylights out of them, right? So we've been a couple million miles. So when the manure leaves the digester, it comes over here into this building, and we separate the liquids and the solids. And we use the solids exactly for beddings. So we're using recycled manure for all our cows to sleep on. And some people say, ooh, that's gross. Why are you doing that? Well, we don't have to buy sawdust. We don't have to buy straw. We don't have to buy other bedding. The other thing is the digester, because it's 100 degrees inside and the manure stays in that tank for approximately 20 days, it kills all the bacteria, the pathogens, the bad stuff in the manure, the stuff that, makes you want to stay away from the manure. And it turns it back into the pile that's there is really no different than the feed that the cows are eating. It's just the undigested feed. The bacteria has been killed in it. The pathogens have been killed. The kids, the younger kids, when they were kids, they used to come back here and play in this. They actually had a rope. They would swing off into the pile. They thought it was fun. And it doesn't excite me, but they thought it was fun to play in that like they were playing in a sandbox. They'd bring their trucks and tractors and load it up in the dump truck and haul it. They did all kinds of stuff back here. They thought it was fun. So then the manure, once it leaves here, the separated liquids go down there to the manure pits. And we use the manure for fertilizer just like every other farm. So the digester doesn't really change anything other than it takes the methane portion, the volatile fatty acids that will break down the quickest and make the most methane. It takes that portion out of the manure. Otherwise, the manure is pretty much the same as what it came out of the cow. And we use that as fertilizer on all our crops, just like pretty much every other farm that has manure, whatever kind of manure it may be. That was the radiator for the generator. So methane, one of the other side effects of methane and hydrogen sulfide, other than it's flammable and it will paralyze your lungs and you can't breathe and you suffocate, that it could kill you, is it's very corrosive. You see the back of the building, the rust in the metal, the rust in the trim. The side of this building used to be metal. It's now wood because the methane rusted the metal out. That was the radiator that kept the engine cool. So we're using the heat that comes off of that to heat the manure, but like in the summertime, we have lots of extra heat because it doesn't take as much heat to heat up the manure.
So what are you using now?
Radiator down there. Went to a bigger, more efficient radiator. It's also aluminum and not steel, so it doesn't rust. Things that you learn over years and years of having the equipment. So the digester, the bugs, the bacteria that is in the manure comes from the cow. Okay? And a cow likes to be bored. It wants to be bored. It wants to eat the same feed, the same way, the same time, every day. That makes a cow happy. Bore the living daylights out of me, but they don't like change. They don't like change at all. So we try to keep the cows as happy as possible because they make as much milk as possible. We have to keep the bacteria in the digester as happy as possible because they make as much bacteria or as much methane. So you have the living organism of the digester that is much like a cow, but then you have all the mechanics and electronics that are in that building. So you have the mechanical aspect of a natural gas engine, which has to have the oil change, has to have air filters put in it. It has spark plugs. It has things that break, things that wear out. In that particular engine, the only thing that is original in it is the oil pan, the block, and the crankshaft. Everything else has been replaced multiple times with that many hours. Then you have all of the electrical components and the safety mechanisms that are in place. We are connected directly to the utility with that generator. So the electricity that it makes can go right back out into the electrical grid. It can go to anybody's house around here. We can power their house. They may use our electricity that was made here. So what happens when you have a thunderstorm, tree limb falls on the power line, knocks it down? Or somebody crashes, hits the utility pole, knocks it over, and the power line goes down. The power goes out. Well, we're still making electricity. So there is multiple layers of safety equipment that prevents us from electrifying the utility lines when the electric actually goes out because of a thunderstorm or some failure. Because our electricity that we make here could damage somebody's property. Worse yet, the lineman from the utility that comes to fix the original problem could be killed. So there's actually not a safety mechanism and a backup. There's a safety mechanism, a backup, and then a backup to the backup. And those things go bad from time to time too. So you have all the electronic and mechanical things that has to be maintained and replaced over time. It also happens to be where lots of people like to store things on the farm because it's always warm and it's always dry in there. So anything that somebody doesn't want to get wet or can't get cold shows up in that building. So there's a lot of stuff in there that doesn't have anything to do with making electricity, but it just happens to be where it gets stored.
Sounds like a tip.
Well, to design them, you'd want to be an engineer. To work on them, you need some kind of trade, technical school, or you got to have a really big interest in things that are mechanical. Now, I'll be a spoiler. I'm a licensed professional engineer. I work on a farm. Out of college, I wore a shirt and tie. I sat in an office, worked my 8 hours, made lots of money. It was great for about 4 years, and I got tired of sitting in an office. I grew up on a farm. I didn't grow up on this farm, but I grew up on a farm and said enough is enough. The shirt and tie, no. I'm not a shirt and tie. In fact, I might at this point own one tie. Okay, I'm not a shirt and tie guy. The money was nice. Yeah, money was nice. I left that and came here. I've been here for 25 years. I've worked on this farm, well, not quite, but almost 25 years I've worked here. And I take care of a lot of people management, crop planning. I do a little bit of mechanical maintenance work on some of the farm equipment, but I take care of everything back here. This is my first stop every morning when I come to work, is driving through here. There's some things that need greased. There's some daily maintenance that needs done. But the big thing is just to make sure everything is working the way it's supposed to. Yeah, do you have to have an engineering degree to run this? No, you have to have an understanding of mechanical equipment. I mean, when the engine breaks down and say we need to replace a head or rebuild a cylinder, we still call the service company that we work with. They come, they do it. Can we do it? Can I do it? Yeah, I've done it enough times. I've helped do it enough times. I can do it in my sleep. But they come with their service van that has every tool that you need, every part that you need right there. We'd have to go to the shop probably 25 times, bringing all the tools up here we'd need. So, yeah. So I help. Usually what we do, if we have a problem here, we get it torn apart until they get here, and then they put it back together. Because the company that we work with on this, that help install it and maintain the generator and all the electrical safety equipment, is in Lancaster County. They're about 3 hours away. So in the time it takes them to get here, we can usually have the engine torn apart, ready to start fixing what broke and put it back together. So that saves us a little bit of a repair bill by us getting it torn apart. But so when I tell you that I have an engineering degree, that doesn't mean you have to have an engineering degree to do this. I just was an engineer because I liked mechanical stuff when I was a kid. I liked tearing apart all my toys and trying to put them back together, tearing apart stuff on the farm that I grew up in, having my dad get mad at me because I couldn't remember how to put it back together. You know, those things that you do when you're a kid. And went to school, got an ag engineering degree from the University of Delaware, took both exams that you have to take to become a licensed engineer. Because you can be an engineer and you can be a licensed engineer. There is a difference. You can be an engineer and you can design things and build stuff, but you have to be supervised by a licensed engineer. So I went through all the steps. I do actually have a consulting business that I have outside of working at the farm, because 80 hours a week at the farm isn't enough. I work for myself also. But then I handle all of our DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, and Conservation District inspections, all the reports that we have to send in, all of the paperwork side, the environmental paperwork side of having a dairy farm. Which, if you don't know what that means, just ask Anna and she can tell you the piles of ring binders that I keep of records. So you guys have been through the parlor, right? Okay, so what they say anything in the parlor about milk quality? Did they talk about milk quality at all? Because this has always been part of my spiel back here. You know, you think manure solids. Cows sleep on manure solids. They lay in the manure solids. How can that be good for the cow? Well, it is. Anybody know what somatic cell count is? You ever heard that term? I know you probably do. Huh?
I've never heard the first.
Somatic cell count? Okay, it's the count of the white blood cells in the milk. A simple way of putting it is it's related to milk quality. Okay, so the lower your somatic cell count is, generally the higher quality your milk is. We ship our milk to Land O'Lakes. We get paid bonuses, a premium, for higher quality milk. So the lower our somatic cell count is, the lower our bacteria count is in our milk, the higher the quality, the more money we get paid. So what's a okay somatic cell count? Oh, come on, you had every answer up till now. You so we'll say what's bad, okay? The maximum I believe is 750,000. But milk companies will reject your milk as low as 400,000. In other words, you send them a truckload of milk, and if the somatic cell count in it is higher than 400,000, they can tell the driver to turn around, take it back to the farm, and dump it. Lost money, gone, down the drain, literally down the drain, because that's what they do. They dump it in the manure pit. So our somatic cell count here typically runs as low as 70, generally 110, 120,000. So we are getting as many premiums from Land O'Lakes as possible. And part of that has to do with our bedding, because that's where cows spend a lot of time. So we try to use dry manure solids and keep the beds well groomed, full of manure solids as much as possible. There's a lot of other factors that play into somatic cell count and milk quality, not just the bedding. But that's one of the things that can affect your milk quality. So we may make electricity here, but that electricity only accounts for about 1% of the farm's income. About 98% of the farm's income comes from milk. So the more volume of high quality milk we can ship every day, the better chance we have of making a profit and staying in business.